Welcome to the deep dive, the place where we really get into those grammar points, the ones you thought you knew, maybe,
Yeah.
and turn them into tools you can actually use for fluency.
For confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And today, we're tackling something that trips up so many learners. It's that ability to compare things, to express opinions beyond just, I like this.
That comparison complex, you called it. I know that feeling. You want to say, oh, this coffee is better than that one, or maybe something bigger, like this really is the best approach for our team.
But then there's that little hesitation, right? Am I supposed to say more good? No, wait, that's not right. Is it Do I need the that fear?
That fear of sounding, well, basic, or just getting it slightly wrong and feeling like your whole point gets lost. That's the wall we're aiming to break down today.
Definitely. Think of this as the fast track to sounding more precise, more nuanced. We've looked at some great sources, grammar guides, speaking lesson plans, you name it.
And these aren't just basic textbooks. They're resources focused on fluency, on real conversation. So our mission today is pretty clear. Yeah, we want to pull all this together and give you a really solid, almost automatic way to handle comparatives and superlatives. So they become just natural tools in your speaking toolkit.
Because honestly, mastering this is probably one of the biggest steps you can take beyond those really simple sentences. It lets you qualify things, rank things, explain why you prefer something.
Absolutely essential stuff. So, okay, let's start right at the beginning. The core difference. Comparatives.
Comparatives compare exactly two things. Two people, two places, two ideas. That's the key number.
Just two. My phone versus your phone, this city versus that city. And then superlatives.
Superlatives are for comparing more than two. So one thing against a whole group. Your phone versus all other phones on the market, maybe.
Right. Establishing the absolute top or bottom of equality within that group. Now, here's something interesting one of our sources pointed out, which might seem counterintuitive.
What's that?
That superlatives, even though they sound more, well, super,
Okay.
they can actually be less complicated to use correctly than comparatives.
Really? How so? That does sound backwards.
It's mostly about consistency. Superlatives have this one very reliable rule. You almost always use the word the biggest, the most interesting. That the is a constant signal.
Ah, okay. Whereas comparatives, they have than, but also all those other bits we need to worry about, like adverbs and pronouns.
Exactly. Comparatives involve a few more moving parts, especially when you get into forming complete, correct sentences. Superlatives are often structurally tighter, so that's our challenge for you today. By the end of this, hopefully you'll feel like superlatives are actually the easier ones to handle.
All right, challenge accepted. Let's get into forming these things.
Okay, so the absolute bedrock of forming comparatives and superlatives comes down to one main thing. How long is the adjective or adverb?
The length rule. Right. This basically tells you whether you stick an ending on the word or if you need to use extra words like more or most.
Precisely. Let's start with the short ones. Generally, we're talking about one-syllable adjectives. Think big, fast, hot, cold.
Okay, easy ones.
For those, it's super simple. You add for the comparative. Bigger, faster, hotter.
And for the superlative, comparing one to the group.
You add est. Biggest, fastest, hottest. That's your foundation. Big, bigger, biggest.
Got it. One syllable, add or est. Pretty straightforward. But what about the longer words? Words like interesting or beautiful.
Ah, yes. This is where it actually gets easier, in my opinion. For longer adjectives, usually 2 or more syllables, you stop using those and est endings altogether.
Okay, so no interesting That sounds wrong anyway.
Exactly. It would be a mouthful. Instead, you use separate words. For the comparative, you put more or less before the adjective. So, more interesting or less interesting.
Right. Makes sense. And for the superlative, the absolute top or bottom.
You use most or least. The most interesting book I've read. The least interesting part of the movie. Using more and most keeps the rhythm of the language smooth, especially with those longer words.
Okay, that rule seems pretty clear. Short words get endings, long words get more or most. But I feel like there's a catch coming.
There's always a little wrinkle, isn't there? There's a specific spelling rule for adjectives that end in Y. Even some 2-syllable ones.
Ah, like happy or easy.
Exactly. If an adjective ends in Y, you need to change that Y to an I before you add or est.
Okay, so happy becomes H-A-P-P-I-E-R.
Perfect. Happier. And the superlative.
H-A-P-P-I-E-S-T. Happiest.
You got it. Same for crazy, crazier, craziest, or busy, busier, busiest. It's a consistent spelling change you just need to remember for those yai words.
All right, that's manageable. Change Y to I. Now, what about the words that just ignore all these rules? The rebels.
The irregulars, yes. Every language has them, and
Yeah.
English comparatives are no exception. These are the ones you simply have to memorize because they don't follow the length rule or the spelling rules.
Okay, hit me with the main ones. The ones you absolutely cannot get wrong if you want to sound fluent.
Top of the list.
Yeah.
Good. You can't say gooder or goodest.
Right, it's better.
Better for the comparative and for the superlative.
Best. He's a good player, she's better,
Yeah.
but the captain is the best.
Exactly. If you nail good, better, best, you're already way ahead. Then there's its opposite. Bad.
Also, irregular. Not badder or baddest.
Definitely not. It becomes worse for the comparative.
My cold is bad, but his is worse.
Perfect. And the superlative, the absolute bottom.
Worse. That was the worst exam ever.
Precisely. Good, better, best, bad, worse, worst. Memorize those pairs. The third really common one is far.
Far. Farther.
Yeah.
Further. This one confuses me.
You're not alone. It's tricky because it actually has two accepted forms for both comparative and superlative. You can say farther or further.
Okay.
And for the superlative, farthest or furthest.
So are they just interchangeable? Does it matter which one I use?
Well, traditionally, there's a subtle difference, and knowing it can make your English sound a bit more precise, especially in formal contexts. Farther and farthest usually refer to actual physical distance.
Like my house is farther from the station than yours.
Exactly. Measurable distance. Further and furthest, on the other hand, are often used for more abstract or figurative distance, like extent or degree.
Like, do you have any further questions? Meaning additional questions.
Perfect example. Or, we need to discuss this further, meaning more deeply. While usage is blurring a bit, sticking to farther for physical distance and further for abstract ideas is generally the safer, more traditional approach. Further is sometimes used for physical distance too, but farther is usually only for physical distance.
Okay, that's a useful distinction. Farther for miles, further for ideas. Got it. Any other common irregulars we need to watch out for?
One more that often trips people up is fun. It's a short, one-syllable word.
So it should be funner and funnest by the rule.
Logically, yes. But in practice, most native speakers treat it as irregular. We almost always say more fun and most fun.
Really? So this party is more fun than the last one.
Exactly, and that was the most fun I've had all year. While you might occasionally hear funner, or funnest, very informally, more fun and most fun are definitely the standard and sound more natural.
Good to know. Avoid funner. Use more fun.
All right, so we know how to form the words themselves. Now, how do we put them into sentences when we're comparing just two things?
This feels like where that little word then comes in, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier.
Absolutely crucial. When you use a comparative adjective or adverb to compare two items, you almost always need then to connect them and show what's being compared to.
So it's not enough to say, my car is faster.
Yeah.
You need to complete the comparison.
Exactly. Faster than what? Or than whom? You need to say, my car is faster than your car. Or, she speaks English more fluently than her brother. That then is the bridge between the two things being compared.
Okay, and this is everywhere, isn't it? Especially when we're making choices, like shopping.
Constantly. Think about buying electronics. This model is cheaper than that one, but that one has more features than this one. Or deciding on a vacation.
Right. Camping is cheaper than staying in a hotel, but the hotel is definitely more comfortable than a tent. You're always weighing two options using comparatives with than.
Exactly. Now, within those comparative sentences, we need to be clear whether we're using a comparative adjective or a comparative adverb. They do different jobs.
Okay, refresh my memory. Adjectives describe.
Nouns. The things themselves. The test was harder than I expected. Harder describes the noun, test.
Got it. And adverbs describe.
Verbs. Actions. How something is done. He runs faster than she does. Faster describes the verb runs. Or adverbs can also modify adjectives or other adverbs, but mostly we use them for actions and comparisons.
And the formation rules for adverbs are similar to adjectives.
Very similar. One-syllable adverbs usually add "er," like fast becomes faster, hard becomes harder.
Yeah.
But adverbs that end in "exly," and many do, like quickly, carefully, frequently, they follow the long word rule. You use more or less.
So she finished the work more quickly than he did. Not quicklier.
Definitely not quicklier. Yes, more quickly. Or he drives less carefully than his sister. You use more or less with those Mickley adverbs.
This is really useful for talking about trends or how things are changing. Like, prices are increasing more rapidly this year than last year.
Exactly. More rapidly describes how prices are increasing or comparing performance. Team A played more effectively than Team B, comparing the manner of playing.
Okay, this next tip sounds really valuable for making speech sound more natural and less, well, robotic. You mentioned quantifying the difference.
Yes. This is such a great way to add nuance. Instead of just saying A is better than B, you can say how much better. You use little words like a lot, much, far, slightly, a little, a bit.
So instead of this phone is newer than my old one, I could say.
You could say this phone is much newer or slightly newer or a lot newer.
Yeah.
It gives the listener a much clearer picture of the degree of difference.
That makes a huge difference. My new laptop starts up a lot faster than my old one. That really emphasizes the improvement.
Or the opposite. This route is only a bit shorter than the other one. It tells you the difference isn't very significant. Using these quantifiers, much, far, a lot, significantly, slightly, a little, a bit, it just makes your comparison so much more expressive.
Love it. Okay, now for something that our sources flagged as crucial for sounding correct,
Yeah.
especially moving between informal chat and maybe more formal or written situations,
Yeah.
completing the comparison after than.
Ah, yes. This is about what comes after then. In casual spoken English, we often just use an object pronoun.
Like, he's taller than her, or she runs faster than him.
Exactly. And that's usually fine in conversation, but it can sometimes be ambiguous. Remember your example, I like ice cream more than him.
Does it mean I like ice cream more than he likes ice cream? Or I like ice cream more than I like the person, him?
Precisely. The more formal and clearer structure avoids this ambiguity. After then, you use a subject pronoun, like he, she, they, we, followed by an auxiliary verb.
Okay, so he's taller than I am, not he's taller than me.
Correct. Or she runs faster than he does.
Mhm.
Notice you use the auxiliary verb am, is, are, do, does, did, will, have, has, etc. That matches the main verb tense, but you don't repeat the main verb.
Right, that was the key rule. Don't say she runs faster than he runs. You say she runs faster than he does. The does stands in for runs.
Exactly. And you need the right auxiliary for the tense. If the main verb was in the past, like she spoke more clearly than he.
Then he did. Using did for the simple past.
Perfect. If it's future, they will finish earlier than we.
Then we will.
Right. Or present perfect. I've traveled more widely than she.
It has using has to match I have. Okay, mastering that auxiliary verb after than plus the subject pronoun, that's the key to the formal, clear structure.
It really is. It might feel a bit stiff at first if you're used to the informal way, but it completely removes any ambiguity.
And one last point here for clean sentences. Using possessives after than.
Yes, another great way to avoid repetition. Instead of saying, his presentation was more interesting than her presentation, which is clunky.
You can use a possessive pronoun. His presentation was more interesting than hers. Much smoother.
Exactly. Or you can use a possessive noun with an apostrophe as. My score was higher than David's, meaning David's score.
So hers, yours, mine, theirs, or David's, the company's. These possessive forms neatly complete the comparison without repeating the noun.
Makes your sentences much more elegant.
Okay, let's shift gears to the top tier. Superlatives. Comparing one against the group. And you mentioned earlier these might actually be simpler in some ways.
I think so, largely because of one incredibly consistent rule. When you use a superlative adjective or adverb, you almost always need the definite article the right before it.
Always the. So not just fastest runner, but the fastest runner.
Exactly. Not most beautiful painting, but the most beautiful painting. Not highest mountain, but the highest mountain. That the is practically glued to the superlative form. Forgetting it is a very common learner error.
Is there any time you don't use the?
The main exception is when you use a possessive adjective instead, like my, your, his, her, it's our, their.
Ah, okay. So you wouldn't say, she is my best friend.
Right. You'd say, she is my best friend, or that was his biggest mistake. The possessive, my's his, takes the place of the in those cases, defining who's best or biggest we're talking about.
Got it. So usually the, unless a possessive like my or his is there. Now, where do these superlative phrases go in a sentence?
They're quite flexible. The whole phrase like the tallest building or the most important factor can act as the subject or the object or even come after a linking verb.
Okay, give me examples. Subject first.
The most difficult part of the job is the paperwork. There, the most difficult part is the subject.
Okay. And as an object.
We visited the oldest castle in the region. The oldest castle is the object of the verb visited.
Makes sense. And after a linking verb like is or was.
Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. It describes the subject, Mount Everest. You can put them in various places depending on what you want to emphasize.
Now, to make a superlative meaningful, you need to define the group you're comparing against, right? You can't just be the best in a vacuum.
Exactly. You need to specify the best in what, or the best of what. And we use specific prepositions for this, mainly in and of.
Okay, when do we use in?
Use in when you're defining the group as a place, an organization, or just a group of people. Think location or container.
So he's the fastest runner in our team. The team is the group.
Perfect. Or, what's the longest river in the world? The world is the place. She's the top salesperson in the company. The company is the organization. In defines the boundaries of the group being compared.
All right, so place, organization, group of people use in. When do we use of?
Use of primarily when the group you're defining relates to a period of time.
Yeah, time. Okay, like it was the coldest day of the year.
Exactly. Or, that was the best decision of my life. He was the greatest musician of the 20th century. Of connects the superlative to a specific time frame.
That's a really clear distinction. In for place group, of for time. Super helpful.
It avoids common errors like saying, the best day in my life, it should be of my life.
Okay, here's something you mentioned sounds really common in native speech. Combining superlatives with the present perfect tense, like have ever seen.
Yes. This is a powerhouse structure for expressing experiences. The pattern is usually, this is the plus superlative plus noun plus that I have ever plus past participle, seen, heard, eaten, done, etc.
So it compares the current thing to everything similar in your entire life experience up to now.
Precisely. It gives your statement real weight. Instead of just, this pizza is good, you say, this is the best pizza that I have ever eaten.
Wow, yeah, that sounds much more impactful. Or for a negative experience.
Yeah. That was the most boring movie that I have ever seen. Using the present perfect have ever really frames it as the ultimate example within your personal history. It's a fantastic structure to master for fluent conversation.
Let's ground this with that Mount Everest example from the sources.
Yeah.
It showed both positive and negative superlatives, right?
It did. So factually, Everest is the highest mountain in the world. Simple superlative of measurement.
But the sources also highlighted the problems. It's become one of the dirtiest mountains. Another superlative, but negative.
Right. And the trash left behind is one of the biggest threats it faces. Again, biggest is a superlative defining the scale of the threat compared to other threats.
Yet climbers still go. It's also described as one of the toughest climbs and one of the most exciting.
Exactly. Toughest uses est, after changing y to I, but most exciting uses most, because exciting is a longer adjective. The complexity of Everest, highest, dirtiest, toughest, most exciting, it really requires superlatives to describe it fully.
And we shouldn't forget the opposite of most, the bottom of the ranking.
Right, the least. Just as most indicates the top, least indicates the bottom. The source mentioned an auction of art made from Everest trash.
Yeah.
The least expensive piece sold for $17. Comparing all the pieces, that one had the lowest price. So the least plus adjective works just like the most.
Okay, we've covered comparing two things, comparatives, and comparing one to a group, superlatives. But what about saying things are the same? Or definitely not the same?
Great question. This moves us into comparisons of equality and non-equality. First up, showing things are equal or the same. For this, we use the structure as.
As.
How does that work?
The structure is as plus adjective or adverb plus as. You sandwich the quality you're comparing between the two as words.
Okay. Give me an adjective example.
This room is as big as the other one. It means they are the same size.
And with an adverb, comparing actions.
He can type as quickly as she can, meaning their typing speed is equal. It's a very flexible and common structure.
And useful in business, too, right? Comparing strategies. Definitely. Our sources mention examples like, some analysts believe traditional radio advertising is still as effective as digital ads for certain demographics, stating equivalence.
Or, getting a positive customer review can be as valuable as placing an advertisement, comparing the worth of two different things.
Exactly. As is your go-to for showing equality in some characteristic.
Okay, so that's for equality. How do we explicitly say things are not equal?
Here you generally have two main options that mean the same thing. You can use less plus adjective adverb plus than, or you can use not as plus adjective adverb plus as.
So less than and not as. They mean the same.
Fundamentally, yes. If A is less expensive than B, it means A is not as expensive as B. Both phrases indicate that A costs less.
Okay, if they mean the same, is there a reason to choose one over the other? Does one sound more natural sometimes?
Yes, there's a strong tendency in common usage. With short one-syllable adjectives and adverbs, we almost always prefer not as.
So I wouldn't usually say this box is less heavy than that one.
You could, but it sounds a bit formal or even slightly unnatural. You'd much more commonly hear, this box is not as heavy as that one, or he's not as tall as his brother.
Right, not as it feels more natural for short words like heavy, tall, fast, big.
Exactly. But for longer adjectives and adverbs, especially those ending in epily, both forms are perfectly fine and sound natural.
So I could say this method is less complicated than the old one.
Yes. Or you could say, this method is not as complicated as the old one. Both are perfectly common and mean the same thing. Same for adverbs. He doesn't visit as frequently as he used to, or he visits less frequently than he used to. Either works.
Okay, that's a really useful usage tip. Prefer not as for short words, but either is fine for longer words. Let's apply this to that online review example again.
Right. The source noted that happy customers are less likely to write reviews than unhappy ones. Less likely uses the less than structure, which sounds natural with likely.
But then it made the point that even if negative reviews are more frequent, their impact might be reduced now.
Exactly, because consumers are more aware of this bias. So the conclusion was, a negative review today is perhaps not as harmful as it used to be. Here, not as harmful as her feels very natural for comparing the level of harm.
That really shows how these structures help us analyze not just objects, but trends and opinions too. It's subtle but powerful.
So we've really covered a lot today, haven't we? From the basic, big, bigger, biggest, all the way to those finer points about auxiliary verbs and using as.
Yeah, the goal really was to take these comparison tools and make them feel less like grammar rules and more like, well, actual tools you can use instinctively when you speak.
Let's do a quick recap of the absolute essentials. Comparatives. They compare two things, typically use or more, and almost always need then.
Got it. Superlatives. Compare one against a group, more than two, use est or most, and nearly always need the.
Don't forget equality with as, and non-equality with less than or not as, especially not as for short words.
And those crucial prepositions for superlatives for places in groups for time periods, getting those right makes a huge difference.
It really does. It shows precision, not just the best, but the best in the class or the best of the year.
So the final step is actually using all this. It's not just about knowing the rules.
Absolutely not. Knowledge is useless without application. So here's the challenge for everyone listening. Think about two things in your own life right now that you could compare.
Like what?
Anything. Two phones you're considering, two restaurants you like, two different ways to get to work, maybe those vacation ideas camping versus a resort.
Okay, so pick two things. Then what?
Then consciously form sentences comparing them using the structures we talked about. Don't just think it, say it. Which one is cheaper than the other? Is one more convenient? Is one not as comfortable as the other? Is one the best option overall?
So take the theory and immediately apply it to your real world. Use cheaper, more comfortable, closer, not as easy, most practical.
Exactly. The more you actively practice forming these comparative and superlative sentences about things that actually matter to you, the faster they'll become automatic. You'll move from just describing things to really analyzing and ranking them confidently.
Making your communication, hopefully, the clearest and most expressive it's ever been. See? Superlative right there.
Perfect. That's the goal.
If you want to keep sharpening these kinds of practical English skills, remember, there's a wealth of information out there. Specific speaking lessons, pronunciation guides, business English tips, idiom practice. Keep exploring, keep comparing, and definitely keep talking. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
See you next time.